Good morning and welcome to today's webinar, Primavera Integration, SharePoint, Mobile, and Beyond. My name is Glenn Johnson. I'm a Senior Vice President here at Magic Software Americas, and I'm joined by Senior Consultant Ryan Beck of Magic Software Americas. Welcome, Ryan.
Hi, Glenn.
And welcome to all of you. We thank you for joining us. We're looking forward to today's session. Many of you as Primavera users, of course, are familiar with its capabilities, but you might be less familiar with Magic Software, so we thought we'd just take a moment to explain who we are before we get into the meat of today's webinar. Magic Software Enterprises empowers customers around the globe with smarter technology that delivers a multi-channel user experience for enterprise processes, business logic, and data. Who we are is a global provider of application development and business integration platforms with proven experience, innovative technology, and we're highly focused on the business needs of our customers and end users. Magic Software, from a corporate perspective, was established in 1983. We're traded on the NASDAQ Stock Exchange under the ticker symbol MGIC, and we have offices around the world with customers in over 50 countries. Some 1,000 employees and 2,500 business partners serving thousands of customers and millions of end users around the world. Magic Software is Gartner and Forrester ranked visionary and top performer for application and integration platform solutions, and we are highly focused on customer success through training programs such as our Magic University program, which provides courses work in Magic XPA application platform and Magic XPA integration platform, as well as providing 24/7 customer support, technical support via e-service, logins and online support, as well as mobile telephone support, and global services such as the professional services teams that are available for Magic Software, as well as our business partners who can help you with specific implementation requirements. And here we're really bringing together the team of resources required, not only the integration expertise or the application development expertise, but project managers, strategic consulting, application specialists with the specific knowledge of industry processes that are relevant and important to your organization. Magic Software is an extremely solid from a financial standpoint. We pleased to report $126.4 million in revenue in 2012, representing significant growth over the last several years. We had non-GAAP operating income of some $18.3 million, as well as GAAP operating income of $16.2 million. And we showed a very healthy cash flow from operations of $18 million and a solid balance sheet of $38.8 million. This is not just recent success, but really part of a trend as you look since 2007. Both operating income and net income have been steadily increasing and in the positive, and that's really remarkable considering the recession of 2008 to 2010. So we're quite pleased with the performance that Magic Software has been able to achieve financially. That is important, we think, to our customers to know that we're dealing with a very stable and reliable vendor and partner. We're recognized for our technology. We received the SD Times 100 Award for middleware. We're ranked in the Software 500 list. We're 3-time SAP Award winners. We're Salesforce.com Integration Award winner. We have alliance status with major vendors such as SAP and Oracle and IBM and Salesforce.com, Samsung, many, many other organizations that large vendors have certified us and validated us for work with their technology. But the approach that we take is a neutral approach, an agnostic approach, if you will, where we're attempting to make it possible for you to bridge the rather significant differences that many of these vendors, large vendors, represent, from Java to .NET to legacy technologies like RPG and COBOL and so forth. So one word about the Magic Software Users Conference 2013, just before we begin the heart of today's topic, and that is that from June 3rd to the 5th, we will be gathering at the Encore in Las Vegas for 3 days of Magic XPI education. Rooms are $140 $8 a night. Conference rate is $5.95. You can get full information at www.magicsoftwareusersconference.com. So Magic has a great relationship with Microsoft. We are pleased that we've received media credits and citations and a number of different sites around the web with people like Jared Spataro, who's the Director of SharePoint Product Marketing at Microsoft, saying good things about Magic XPI's capability to integrate SharePoint to business-critical applications. Our solutions are really based on a one-stack technology that includes two platforms, an integration platform and an application platform. The integration platform making it possible to connect enterprise applications, third-party applications, Oracle applications, websites, and web services, and so on. And the application platform actually delivering up user interfaces and interactions that can be leveraged across a number of different channels, including mobile, web, desktop, and so on. So these both have in common the fact that they are metadata-driven solutions, which means that they're leveraging the underlying capabilities of the platform in order to simplify the process for developers and business analysts in your IT organization, so that there's no requirement at any time for line-by-line programming and coding. So when we talk about Primavera to SharePoint, it's important to remember that Primavera is one of those, underlying ERP, or rather one of those underlying enterprise systems that sits alongside of your ERP, your CRM, your other systems. And SharePoint can basically expose information from these underlying systems in general to a variety of different processes. Today we'll talk about some of those specific processes where you might want to be integrating Primavera to other systems. Not only SharePoint, but also your ERP systems, very importantly, and so on. We'll look specifically at some of those processes. But just to back up a level, I think most of you on the webinar are very familiar with Primavera, its project management capabilities, the ability to work with dashboards that give you the dashboard view of what's going on in terms of your projects, and really allow you to, as a project management office, to look at your project portfolio, as a project manager, look at your project portfolio, and see visually where things are working, doing your capacity planning, your performance statuses, and so forth, all the typical project management tools like Gantt charts and so on. Now, you're also able to drill down with Primavera into the projects themselves, so that each project has its own workspace. You can work with the EPS, the activities, the team usage, evaluate issues, risks, documents related to those projects, and see everything from a visual standpoint as well as a document standpoint. And document repositories, as we'll be talking about, can be stored in SharePoint as a built-in part of Primavera P6 integration to SharePoint. So we'll be talking about that, but we'll also be talking about other kinds of Primavera P6 to SharePoint integration. You also, of course, have a resource view within Primavera P6. And there's, a lot of it's about visualization, but when you get right down to it, you're doing very detailed data integration or information entry as well, where you're making your resource assignments, to individuals, to various tasks that they're assigned to, with the project name that's associated with it, and all of the various, time-related, task-related information, cost accounting-related information for these very specific projects. And that's where the devil is in the details. It's one thing to be able to take a web part from Primavera and display that in SharePoint and show people, what's going on from a visualization or dashboard perspective, and that's useful and that's nice. But quite often, you actually need the detail itself, the data. And in order to get the data into SharePoint, you have to be able to work with the SharePoint lists, and that's where Magic XPI comes into play, is in actually bringing information across and not just pretty pictures. So if, for example, you have a SharePoint timesheet app, and you want to have this kind of bi-direction, where people are entering their hours, their time into a SharePoint timesheet app, you want to bring that back into Primavera, then that's where Magic XPI comes into play. So let's talk about a non-SharePoint requirement. For example, in many cases, you're going to need to integrate Primavera to your ERP system. Now, we could be talking about SAP or Infor or Lawson, Microsoft Dynamics, J.D. Edwards E1 or World, PeopleSoft. But let's look at one specific example here with Oracle E-Business Suite. In this instance, there are a number of flows or processes that you would want to identify, such as sharing of global information and resources from E-Business Suite to Primavera. Project header information would be an example of a bidirectional information exchange where information can be updated and changed in either information. In the case of Primavera, there are some unique pieces of information as well, like the progress that's taking place in the organization. Bidirectionally, you could be sharing work breakdown, structure and tasks, resource assignments, budget information, and typically, however, you would look at E-Business Suite as the system of record for actual costs, and so that information be coming across from E-Business Suite to Primavera. So there are one-way data flows from ERP to Primavera. There are bidirectional data flows between Primavera and your ERP system, such as E-Business Suite. And then there are one-way data flows that may need to take place from Primavera back to the ERP system. In this particular example, E-Business Suite. So if we look at what those interfaces might be for J.D. Edwards, it would be a different picture. J.D. Edwards has different capabilities because with the Business Suite, let's just go back for a second, you have a pretty sophisticated project module that is, however, much less sophisticated than Primavera's project management capabilities, obviously. So there's a lot of information that needs to go back and forth. With J.D. Edwards, that project management capability is, much subdued, and so you don't really have that. So what you're looking at here is more of the pure ERP to project management interface flows that are required. And so in this case, you might have things like Enterprise One job data, which is really going to be going back to the master item batch information, bring that over to Primavera P6 projects information. Cost code structures exist in both systems, and so in that instance, there's a need for bidirectional information exchange. Budgeting, basically, the system of record is J.D. Edwards Enterprise One, and so what you want is to have the planned budget from Enterprise One being brought into Primavera, where the actuals then are reflected. In the case of progress payments and requisitions, you have bidirectional information exchange. So a requisition being made in Oracle Primavera, basically, can show needs to be updated based on the progress payments that are taking place in Enterprise One. So you can sort of see how all of that information is exchanged bidirectionally. On the other hand, you might have a one-way data flow from E1 to Primavera where purchase orders and committed contracts are essentially related to one another. So PO is placed in Enterprise One, and that becomes a contract commitment to be managed in Primavera. And then finally, change requests and change orders is just really a difference in terminology in the two systems, and those may need to be integrated as well. Again, depending upon which modules of Enterprise One you have, that may or may not be possible. But assuming you have a full Enterprise One suite, then that would be another area where there could be some tracking of information between Primavera and E1. So that's exciting to start thinking as a business analyst about where are these touch points, where do the flows require us to share information, and how can we integrate that. Now, when you use SharePoint as a Primavera P6 content repository, then you basically have your documents related to your project manager being automatically stored in SharePoint as your ECM, your Enterprise Content Management System. But that's it. It's basically just an elaborate or fancy file management system. So beginning with Primavera P6.7, SharePoint was supported as a content repository for project documents. And Primavera P6 also offers the Primavera P6 Integration API and web services, obviously much more data and information oriented. So Primavera, however, doesn't provide the integration and API and web service to work natively with SharePoint. There's a need for intermediation. There's a need for data transformation. The syntax is different. The data dictionaries are different, and so on. So the Magic XPI integration platform comes into play at that point, and it overcomes this disconnect between Primavera P6 data and metadata and the SharePoint applications that can be leveraged in SharePoint and the SharePoint workflows. So that's where we're talking today about this need and this requirement. How can we accomplish this? Also, in earlier versions of Primavera, you may actually need to use Magic XPI to identify the documents that need to be shared and stored in SharePoint as well. So the project status elements, if we're looking at Oracle Business Suite, can typically be transferred from Primavera P6 to Oracle. And that would include things like the project structure, the header, the WBS task, resource, project assignments, dates, and so on. So this information that exists in Primavera P6 is brought into Oracle Projects as part of EBS, and then you have visibility not only by project managers and the PMO that are utilizing Primavera, but also those users that have access to Oracle Business Suite and Oracle Projects. So that's the exciting capability and need and requirement in many organizations. You also have the kind of capability and need to bring information back from Oracle Projects into Primavera P6. And these are going to be actuals typically. So the actuals are coming from Oracle Projects to Primavera P6 to update primarily the financial information, which is your ERP actual burden total, your ERP actual raw total costs, and so on. So that's exciting as well, because now you have real information in Primavera, whereas before that may not have been available to you. So these are just two examples of EBS to Primavera touchpoints. When we start talking about SharePoint, there's just a variety of touchpoints or templated applications that can be utilized that may be relevant, pulling information from both Primavera and other systems, maybe your ERP system, and then displaying that in a SharePoint application. The Magic XPI integration platform that we use to accomplish this provides enterprise-grade integration. So we have a very scalable platform that automates business processes, does all of the data synchronization, the messaging, the workflow that's required from a system-to-system standpoint, so that you can connect your Oracle applications, your Oracle Edge applications, and your third-party applications, including websites, web services, and so on, together. And then if you need to take in the mobile aspects of this, then you can actually use the Magic XPA application platform to expose information from Primavera and your other systems to your mobile apps. And so you can create very usable mobile apps based on the Primavera P6 information and deploy them to any mobile environment, so that you can choose between iPads or iPhones or Androids, various versions of Androids, ice cream sandwich, key lime pie, it doesn't matter. If you don't know what that means, that's probably even better, because you don't have to know what that means. The Magic XPA application platform is able to deploy those applications across all of those various kinds of environments, BlackBerries and so on. So when you are looking for a mobile solution, the Magic XPA application platform allows you to leverage metadata once again in order to create the application once, but then deploy it natively so that it has that iPhone, look and feel, so that you can thumb across pages and so forth, versus the BlackBerry interface that might be very keyboard intensive and so forth. So they're just different user styles, but the same application, single code base for that application. It's very exciting, and no line-by-line programming is required, because the Magic XPA is a platform-based application creator, so that you're leveraging metadata and really working from a very nice tabular type interface in order to design those applications. So with this approach that we're talking about today, you're able to really use what's known as service-oriented architecture. You're all IT people, you know what that means. And they're kind of an interesting requirement because some of you have a lot of legacies that's non-SOA compliant. And the exciting thing about the Magic XPI integration platform is that it can leverage those legacy assets and service enable those legacy assets. So it's using components and wizards and resources and other methods for accessing those back-end systems, maybe making an RPG or a COBOL call or working with a messaging middleware like JMS or something like that. Sort of non-SOA approaches typically. But you can service enable those so that you're exposing them through SOAP, through REST as kind of a SOA type of environment. So that's a much cleaner and more modern way of integrating applications in your environment without requiring you to rip and replace. You're simply utilizing existing assets and making them play nice in your enterprise IT environment and architectures. So with SOAP-based web services, we're obviously using WSDLs and UDDIs, the WSDL for the description of the web service, the UDDI for the directory level view of the web services that are available. We're utilizing HTTP GET and HTTP PUT in order to create representational state transfer or RESTful web services. So Magic XPI draws on many years of proven experience in all of these kinds of technology environments to deliver this kind of enterprise-grade SOA-compliant solutions that have that built-in scalability, automated error handling that Ryan's going to show us and talk to us about in a moment, fault tolerance management, operational reliability, business continuity, while maintaining stringent security solutions throughout. So we have support for all of the security standards that might be important in your organization, such as encryption and decryption, as well as user rights management and so forth. From an architectural standpoint, the Magic XPI integration platform is a platform that provides the resources that you need, such as connectors and application adapters, to accomplish the task of business process integration. The data management level, you're doing mapping and data transformation. At the orchestration level, you're doing event-driven architecture, applying business logic to your business processes, which really allow you then to be fully SOA compliant so that you can both consume and publish web services, so that you're a web services provider as well as a web services consumer in a way that provides a SOA approach. The advantage of that being that you're using loosely coupled architecture. And so by being loosely coupled, as one element changes within your enterprise IT environment, there's no ripple effect. You just have to update the interface to that changed element, and everything stays in place in terms of your service-oriented business process integration architecture. So that's exciting. And of course, it's all developed through the Studio interface, and it's all monitored through the monitor environment and maintained in a secure fashion through support for enterprise-grade security standards. We're going to show you what this looks like, because it's one thing to talk about it, it's another thing to see it. And it's a visual approach that Ryan's going to be showing you. It allows you to streamline the complexity of your business processes and flows by doing things like data mapping and an ability to monitor what's going on in the background. On the SharePoint side, we are leveraging Windows SharePoint services. We can interact with the business connectivity services that have been available since SharePoint 2010. And that's basically giving you the ability to work with libraries and lists and entities and so forth in SharePoint. The customers that are using this technology from Magic Software, both Magic XPA application platform and the Magic XPI integration platform, are well-known brands across the industry, companies like ABI and AutoZone and Ford Warner and Cleveland Golf. And we'll be happy to talk to you about what these companies are doing. Mizuno and Rapatoni and Rexall and RoadNet, companies like Sony and Toto and UPS and Vishay. We're proud to work with companies of all sizes and in a variety of industries that are really in need of the kinds of integration capabilities for the technologies that we're talking about today. So what we want to do now is invite Ryan back to become the presenter in our session. So I'm going to do that.
Great.
And by making him the presenter, he'll be able to share his desktop, and we'll then take a look at what Ryan has to show us for today's Primavera and SharePoint integration webinar.
So today we're going to show you a live demonstration of using Magic XPI to integrate to SharePoint. The other application, I'll show you all the different possibilities that we can do very easily. Well, actually, it's impossible to show you all the possibilities, but we'll go into a lot of them. And basically, what I want to do is show you a live demonstration of actually moving data from SharePoint into JDE. We'll use Enterprise One because it's actually a very common system we'll have. We can, of course, go into really any type of Oracle system or a lot of other ones, which I'll show you. But I'm going to log into E1 for this demo. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and bring over some information from SharePoint into E1. Now, let me let it finish logging in here. And I'm going to go into our batch time entry files. This is like incoming timesheet entries and things like that. Basically, information that might specify who works how many hours or something like that. So this is incoming data. It's an EDI file, right? So we want to get data in here. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to go and put the information into SharePoint. Now, when you input into SharePoint, one of the problems is that obviously it's a different system, so we're going to have to integrate it over with XPI. The other thing is you do lose a little bit of visibility into what exists in JDE. For instance, if I wanted to put in the work order number, I might manually have to type that work order number, and it may not even exist. If I was in JDE, there's validation that's already done to tell me that that's a valid work order and that it's something I can use. So JDE has some things that that you can leverage, but but then the problem though is if you have everybody in your organization logging into JDE to enter, say, timesheet entries or whatever into JDE. Now they have to be trained in it. Now you need licenses for it. Now you need the hardware to manage those users. So we want to be able to provide an integration so they can do that data entry in an outside system, but still be able to leverage the foreign key relationships that we have from JDE. So we can do that. And the way we found is we can actually pull data live out of JDE simply by clicking this button here. What that'll do is it's basically going to go to a page we wrote that will query JDE for anything we want. It's going to ask Magic XPI to do it for it. But what it'll do then is allow you to browse through all the different, in this case, work orders that might be relevant. We can sort by different, by different things. It might grab a different work order number or grab a different, group them into a certain group. But it allows me to paginate through them and find something that might be useful. And when I click it, it's going to jump back to the page, and you'll notice it filled all this in. This was all empty before. And now by going through the picker button I did, I was able to populate this with the data and free fill it in. The other thing I've done is I've also brought in a list of employee numbers, so I can maybe pick my employee number or something like that, and do that. And that's actually, and the way to make that list drop down happen is we actually did that by copying that data into SharePoint with Magic, which is another way of doing it. But most of the time, you don't really want all your data to reside in SharePoint. You just want it to be able to use it as a data source to go get it. And that's really what the first part of that demo showed you. So then I'll just put in some data real quick. I'll put today's date, and I'll put I don't know, I'll just leave this all fine. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set this to approved. You can certainly leverage the workflow in SharePoint. So if you are using workflows, we can basically look for different criteria for different things. If this was not approved or if it was approved, we could basically leave it alone or grab it based on that criteria. And then if it really was a workflow, we could actually promote it. to the next step once we were done with it. But what I'm going to do now is when I save this, Magic XPI is going to realize that I saved this record. It's watching SharePoint. It wants to know whenever something new is created. And then what it's going to do is it's going to take it and send it to JDE, and it's going to bring me back a batch number so that I know it made it successfully, or at least I have a tracking number so I know it made it to the other side. So I'll click OK. You'll see it did hit the list, but you'll see the batch number is blank. After a couple seconds, what will happen then is I'll hit the refresh button on my screen, and actually we'll see that batch number pop in. So you can see it just took number 20. It just took the next value that was available, and that number came back from basically from Magic XPI that it got from JDE. Now here you'll see I created it at 11:30 a.m. because that's on Pacific time where we are, and then about a couple seconds later it was updated by another user. That's because Magic XPI is logging in as a user that's just named SharePoint. One thing, whenever we do integration, we abide by the security of the system we're integrating with. So you'll always see you're basically going in as an actual user. It's not some weird backdoor trick with the database. It's actually going through the SharePoint API. On the other side, if I refresh JDE, we will see number 20 popped in. We expected. So I can go into this and I can select it, and it should have basically all the same information that I entered over on the SharePoint side. So we'll let it load up a second. JDE is deciding to be slow today, apparently. Maybe we'll order lunch while it opens the... It's okay.
There's probably a flow for that.
Yes, exactly. We could do that. Find a way. We could do we'll have to do an integration with Domino's so that we can order a pizza. I think they might have an API. So that could be deadly. All right. So here's the here's this. I've got obviously some information here. I picked the bad address number apparently, but basically here's all the information: 9 to 5, and start time, end time, the date I worked, the explanation of what was done, number of hours, the user it came through. So it's basically got all that. And I just picked an employee that wasn't really hired at the time, I guess. So so there it is, coming from one side to the other. And then, and basically the point of that is, of course it eliminates double input, so you don't have to re-input the data. But it also provides basically a really, really quick and easy way to integrate the two sides. So it becomes basically integrated in near real time. Now you can also do it on a scheduled basis, and you can also do it on demand. So say you don't want near real time integration. Maybe you want to wait till 7 o'clock every night to run. You can do that. You can also run it on demand. Maybe you want someone to have to hit a button to make it work, or maybe you want some combination of all three. You want it to run near real time all day, and then have it shut off at a certain time, and then have somebody hit a button at a certain time after that. Literally anything you want to do, the engine is capable of, as far as the scheduling and the timing and whatnot. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go behind the scenes and show you how this works, because when I did this, the one thing that you never saw was Magic XPI. So when I'm doing a Magic XPI demo, you don't really see it. And that's the reason for that is just because it is a transparent batch engine. It's running on a Windows server somewhere. It's running to the service. It's connecting to SharePoint. It's connecting to JDE. It's connecting to other applications that may be part of the integration. And it's orchestrating the data between them in batch. It's basically, there's no user interface to see. So what that means is, if we want to see what it's doing and how it works, we have to go in with our monitoring tools. But before I do that, I'll show you how we actually created the flow that actually did it. So I'm going to open up what's called the Magic XPI Studio. And this is the flow that ran just a minute ago that allowed us to query SharePoint and work with JDE and basically go in and do all the things we wanted. So this was simply querying SharePoint. And I'll show you how we would do that. We would basically just grab a SharePoint component over here off the palette, It's called the component repository, and what that does is it gives us an unconfigured components that we can grab over. So these are like basically our tools in our toolbox, and we kind of grab them and drag them over and drop it on the flow. Say okay. And the MSI was basically just drag it and drop it. Completely code-free. What you're doing here is you're creating the logic in how the server is going to run through and execute it. So what I would want to do is I would right-click SharePoint, hit Configuration, pick what I want to work with. It's aware of lists and libraries, so it can work with all kinds of data and all kinds of document repositories. And then what it does, which is really cool, when I click this button, it's going to go out to my server. The little line flies back and forth to left and right. That means going to the server. And that means that it gave me a list of all of my collections and other data lists that exist on the SharePoint server. So this is a custom list. I could have, if I switched it to another server, it would show me the data on another server entirely, right? So it's it has the ability to understand the environment, because every SharePoint environment is unique, right? If I go into obviously there's a list in here called Please Work. If I go into your SharePoint, you probably don't have a list that says Please Work, but maybe you should. And what that allows us to do is very quickly discover what's available on it, and then it basically understands the schema. So if I want to add something to items, click Add, I switch the drop down to Add, I go to Items, and I come into a data mapper, and it's ready to add items. Now what will happen is I'll create a data mapper here which describes the relationship between a source, which could be like a flat file, could be a database, could be an XML file. We have a lot of different sources that you can have. Basically, any other component can be a source. And what you then do is go and map the relationship between the two. Now you'll see, I'll see the fields that exist on the item in SharePoint, like the title, description, also any additional fields that were created by a site administrator, anyone that could make changes to the site or the list. Also, I'll see metadata fields, so modified, created, author. These are not fields that I can't just map anything into them and add it. SharePoint would ignore it. If I'm reading it back, though, these fields would be populated. This would tell me who the author was, who edited it, what version it was, if there's attachments. Also, you'll see I see down here an array of attachments. This is a double folder there. That means that I can have multiple of those, which means I can attach any folders or any files to this document that I'm saving, as well as read them back. So I can get data in and out of SharePoint very easily. Now these are very straightforward mappings. As the data moves from left to right, it would basically then go ahead and be straight copied from one side to the other. But I can do more complex mapping. So if I want to make the description some sort of how a concatenation of these two fields, I could map name 2 and name 5, for instance, to description, and I could then double-click description, expand it, and that allows me to then go say, hey, I want name 2, and then maybe a space, and then name 5. There's also a very, very powerful array of expressions and functions you can do, which includes like arithmetic, string manipulation, string comparisons, all kinds of Boolean functions, replacing string. Basically, the tool is code-free, but it gives you the ability to go in and use expressions to, say, modify your data and transform it as it goes across. And when you do, then you'll have a little FX there, it's got a little function there. That tells me that as this data comes from the source and flies over to the destination, there's going to be some kind of hoop it has to jump through to be manipulated. It goes through that expression to do it. And then I would just say OK all the way out, and it would create my component. And the next time I built it and deployed it, it would run. The whole platform here is metadata driven. So my project that I'm creating here is metadata. When I build it, by clicking this little button up here, it creates a cabinet file that can be run on the Magic XPI server. That means that you're not creating an executable, because then you don't have to worry about how is the executable compiled and where can it run and whatnot. Once you've created the project here in your in the studio, it can be deployed to any version of Magic XPI out there, including on Windows, on Linux. We have also servers for AIX and iSeries even. So there's all kinds of places it can be deployed. And what that means is, you don't have to worry about a lot of the problems, like how the engine's going to perform or what it does. You're basically just giving it the set of instructions for it to run, and telling it what it's going to be doing. And then it leverages all of these components and services and things like that to make that happen. Every one of these icons here that I'm parking on as I'm going through is what's called a component. And a component, it could be just an internal service like that we use, like for moving data around from flows, or it could be an adapter. And an adapter would be able to go out and talk to another system like a SharePoint or a Salesforce or a JDE or something like that, and be able to basically be able to move data in and out of that other system. It's sort of our gateway to the other system. Also, there's more generic technology generic components that can be used for anything like HTTP, FTP, databases, working with XML and web services. So if we want to connect to Primavera, typically we would leverage a web service or read a database, so that we have basically connection to the API that we're expected to use. But we don't necessarily need to have a component written for it. Components are typically written for ERP systems that are very complex to connect to, because then it will abstract us from all the complicated nature of connecting to it. But for most systems that we would connect to, the technology generic adapters, like working with web services, XML, flat files, database calls, select, update, insert, deletes, are typically more than enough to accomplish the integration needs. Now, if you have integration services, say you've got VCS on SharePoint, and you have also say integration services on other applications, you might ask, why do I need a middleware tool that could do this? And the reason is because those systems are typically basically they're integration points. They're typically things waiting to be called to make happen. In order to actually bring them alive and make them happen, oftentimes you'll need something like a Magic XPI in the middle that can translate the data between them. So you may have separate applications that may speak. They may both even be web service enabled, or they basically may not be able to be compliant with each other to pass XML back and forth, or maybe they don't even have a way to talk. It's sort of like they need a translator in the middle, and that's what Magic XPI can do. It can not only orchestrate the integration, but it can basically create a whole transformation of it as it goes from one side to the other. So you don't even need to connect two systems that even support the same concepts. Like I think just the other day, someone was asking, can we integrate JDE with Outlook, and what that would mean, or even Exchange, of course. So you wonder what's the connection between those? What would it be? What the reality is, excuse me, is any business scenario you come up with, the tool is flexible enough to make happen. Sorry, I had to cough. So the idea here is the whole tool is scalable, reusable, easy to use, and easy to deploy. What we intend to do is make everything easier for the developer. So as I go into these flows, as I make my flows, as I go to my mappings, and I do this, this is a means that I can basically deploy and maintain a project in a much simpler way, so that it would take just a matter of weeks instead of months. Pardon me, my throat's tickling. So the idea is that in the end, everything is less risk. You don't have to worry so much about if you're going through with an integration project, are we going to be able to talk to JDE? Are we going to be able to talk to SharePoint? Is it going to pass muster with security? Are the systems going to be compatible? This sort of becomes your sort of universal sort of Swiss knife in the middle that manages those connections. So even if the two sides are not fully compatible, we are compatible with them, and then we can translate the data between them. So there's a lot of other components that we don't have time to dive into every single one. And even if you have a system you want us to connect to, you don't know if we can, and you don't see a component for it, it doesn't mean that we can't do it. It just means that typically it's simple enough we would use one of the generic components to do that. So what I think we want to do now is let's just go ahead and see if we have any questions available, and go ahead and answer them. If you have a question, go ahead and answer it, or go ahead and ask it in the chat box. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and respond to everyone window. But also, if it's something that is maybe more intensive, we need to look up, we can research it for you and get back to you.
Thanks very much, Ryan. Appreciate it. And we're going to give you a moment to go ahead and take a look at the chat box, the question box. Enter your questions there that you might have regarding Primavera integration to SharePoint or related topics. So we're ready to take your questions regarding that at this time. One question that was coming in was regarding the web services that are objects that are support for Primavera P6. We're showing that here. Primavera P6 exposes these business objects through web services, and so you can actually monitor for updates and creates in any of these areas. You know, project risk, timesheet, baseline project, all these various areas. And the nice thing about the Magic XPI is that it's going to be consuming that and basically be able to be triggered by your Primavera P6 activity based on what's going on in the back end. So that's one piece there. Let's see if we have another question coming in. Looking in the chat here. Here's a question. Is Oracle Fusion middleware required in order to utilize Magic XPI? Well, the answer would be no. I mean, you don't actually have to have Oracle Fusion middleware. There are some, you know, of Oracle's AIA tips that are available out there. You can certainly have those, and Magic XPI is capable of consuming services from Oracle Fusion middleware, and Oracle Fusion middleware is capable of consuming services from Magic XPI. So the two integration platforms are compatible with one another. What we're really trying to do with Magic XPI is provide a single server and user interface so that there aren't multiple middleware pieces that you have to purchase in order to integrate all of your Oracle applications and non-Oracle applications, as well as websites and web services. So that's kind of the benefit, I guess, for XPI, is the fact that it's unified as one piece of middleware versus multiple pieces that have to be put together in order to accomplish what you're doing. It looks like that's all the questions we have coming in, Ryan, so I want to thank you for your participation in the webinar today, and thanks especially to Ryan for his help with the demo here. And we look forward to seeing you all again soon on another Magic Software webinar. And don't forget to join us in Las Vegas June 3rd to the 5th. That's the Magic Software Users Conference at the Encore at the Wynn Hotel. You can sign up and register at www.magicsoftwareusersconference.com. Thanks and have a great day.